something that also makes us very different from the Russian Federation is real parliamentarism that we still have in Ukraine. Even during this brutal war, Ukraine remains representative democracy.
I think the whole world understood who Ukrainians are, where we stood in unity, where we fought together and keep fighting together, where we took away our differences and united as a country and as a nation.
Despite all challenges that the full-scale war posed to all of us, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, like the entire Ukrainian society, was able to adapt to these difficult conditions and continue to work for the victory of Ukraine.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic Course. I'm your host, Varvara Shmygalyova. In today's episode, we'd like to explain to you how the Ukrainian Parliament works during the large-scale Russian invasion. War is an emergency situation that requires a large amount of legal regulations. And Parliament's role is to adopt legislation to regulate and support the day-to-day life of the country. It requires dealing with financial and legal matters in order to ensure the survival of industries, other governmental institutions, and regular households. MPs are working united to preserve and strengthen the Ukrainian state. If you want to find out more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our videos in the future. To start, welcome Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze, member of the Parliament of Ukraine, former Vice Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration of Ukraine.
I believe that first and foremost, it's incredibly important that during the full-scale war that Russia is carrying out against Ukraine, Ukrainian Parliament as an institution does work. And it is doing so from the very first day of this full-scale invasion, from the 24th of February. The Parliament is taking and passing the decisions that are important for the defense of the country, for the well-being of the country, for continuation of life of the Ukrainian citizens. We also understand that most of the Ukrainian MPs who represent different democratic, patriotic Ukrainian political parties have been on those extermination lists that Russia has been preparing because it had the idea that within 3 days or up to a week, it will take over Ukraine and will change the authorities here for a puppet government and puppet parliament. So we all understand that all of Ukrainian parliamentarians were under serious security threats from the very beginning of the war. But we are grateful to our defenders. We are grateful to Ukrainian forces of defense that they ensure that Russian Federation troops have been kicked out from near Kyiv and from other territories that have been liberated over this period of 10 months of war. Ukrainian Parliament also carries out a very serious and important role working on different platforms abroad. Parliamentary diplomacy has gained additional momentum over this period of time. And all of us individually and also institutionally are using our contacts with different colleagues abroad in order to tell the truth about the war that we are going through, to explain and prioritize why exactly and what exactly is needed as a support for Ukraine, and working all together on ensuring that support of democratic world, of free world for Ukraine doesn't only continue, but actually is increased. And this is very important that irrespectively of the political parties that parliamentarians represent, predominantly, besides maybe those parliamentarians who still represent the political party or the remnants of the political party that was connected to Kremlin, are working abroad as one united team, working and speaking in one voice on behalf of the Ukrainian people. That makes our case stronger, I believe, and that also resonates much better with other societies and with other parliaments and with our partners. We're using different parliamentary assemblies platforms for that. We are using international conferences. We're using bilateral contacts, working in the bilateral friendship groups, also working on the different political unions in order to get our message across. And this is a very serious part of the work, especially of those parliamentarians who represent, for example, Foreign Affairs Committee or committee that I'm chairing, the Committee on Ukraine's integration into the EU. And I'm very proud that we also have made a serious input in getting a historic, absolutely historic decision of the European Union towards Ukraine by granting us the candidate status for the EU membership in the future. Also, we have to admit that some of the procedures during this work in the martial law are actually limited in the parliament, and most of the meetings of the committees on the technical side, basically, and of the agreeing council are happening in the online format. From my perspective, that limits to an extent the engagement of different stakeholders that could, by presenting their views and their comments, their maybe sometimes even criticism, could improve the legislation that we are passing in the parliament. Nevertheless, this is the work is being conducted in this particular regime. And however, the actual voting on the laws and passing of the laws is happening in the real offline live format in the parliament, sometimes with limited procedures as well. And as I said, that sometimes also impacts the quality of the legislation. So from my perspective, more and more we have to return back to following the rules and procedures which are very important for the real parliamentarism. And basically, I wanted to underline that something that also makes us very different from the Russian Federation is real parliamentarism that we still have in Ukraine. And that means that the parliament was democratically elected. That means that we are representing Ukrainian society and Ukrainian people. We have a voice and we have a possibility to impact the real situation in the country, and that has to be upheld as a institutional strength of the parliament, even during the war. And I think that this is incredibly important in order to preserve our path towards the European and Euro-Atlantic future of Ukraine. Also, one more important thing is that during the wartime, obviously, even opposition parties, for example, I represent one of the opposition parties, do limit themselves in terms of criticism of the authorities. And we are trying to ensure that we are not playing along the Russian attempts to conduct different psychological operations that would sow some animosity in the Ukrainian society. However, if there are principal things that are important for the future of the country, we are trying to make sure that our voices are being heard and that our reservations are being taken into account. Sometimes it is possible, sometimes it's not. But anyhow, the discussion is taking place, and that again is making sure that even during this brutal war, Ukraine remains representative democracy. Ukraine remains a country that cherishes and values major things of importance like freedoms, like human rights, like rule of law. And that will hopefully bring us to future victory, along with the support that we are going to further receive also from the free world.
Following, please hear from Alyona Shkrum, member of the Parliament of Ukraine. She'll talk about her first-hand experience of being an MP during these very important times.
Hello, my name is Alyona Shkrum, and I am a member of Ukrainian Parliament. I am actually in the Ukrainian Parliament right now. As you can see, it's a big, beautiful, historic building Right now, quite dark, very cold, and with all the huge windows and doors barricaded and protected with the bags of sand. We had to do that to protect ourselves from the shellings, possible rockets, and basically attacks of the Russian army. On the first day of war, on the 24th of February, we had to make a choice, either to stay in this building and to vote here under the big risk of being shelled, of being killed, or to move to another secret building, to another special building, where we can vote in safety underground. And we decided almost unanimously that we will stay here. Unfortunately, the Parliament of Ukraine is completely not prepared for the war. In the session of the Parliament, in the hall where we vote, there is literally a glass ceiling on top of us. So it will not stand any attack on the building, and we knew that very well from intelligence. But because the Russian propaganda at the time already tried to say that the parliamentarians have left Ukraine, that the president have left Ukraine, that there is no more Ukraine and there is no more fighting or army, obviously we had to stand here. And I think it made a huge difference. It made a huge difference not just to us, but it made a huge difference to the morale of Ukrainian people, to the morale of territorial defense and the army, that they knew that at the same time, Ukrainian members of parliament are here in the center of Kiev, in the same building where we voted for 30 years, and that we are not afraid, that we will pass everything that needs to be passed, from martial law to any money to go to defense directly so that they can start protecting the country. And I think this decision was a historic one. I'm proud that I was here at the 6 o'clock in the morning on the first day of this horrible Russian aggression. This is the building where a Ukrainian national flag was brought in for the first time and put on top in 1991. This is the building where Ukrainian independence was announced and voted for. This is also the first building where we took down the statue of Lenin, which from the Soviet Union times was still here, just up top of the speaker's place in the parliamentary session. And this is the building where I am very proud to be a member of parliament representing Ukrainian people at this time of this dramatic, horrible, but so inspirational moment in our history. Parliament never left. Parliament was never defeated. Actually, it was very near to this place where I am right now, in the room in the basement, where we gathered on the first day of war, on the 24th of February, and where we were told that Putin is thinking to be here in Ukraine in 3 days and wants to take Ukraine in 3 days. And that the Russian tanks are coming from Belarus border to Kiev and could be here in about 6 hours in the center of Kiev if we do not stop them. Obviously, it's been 10 months and the Parliament of Ukraine is standing, is working, is passing the laws, is discussing the needed resolutions and the bills. And the president is here, the government is here, the people of Ukraine are fighting like lions, and this is how it's going to be till our victory. The only other exception we've made is that we obviously have no journalists and no press here because, again, of the security reasons and because we do not have an online translation. Other than that, the full-scale debate is going on. The full-scale consultations is going on by Zoom and online. Before we come to the parliament, we try to figure out as much as we can of our differences in the laws and our amendments before coming to the parliament, and we try not to spend more than 3 hours, maybe 4, here, because the security services tells us that it would be very dangerous for us and for the people around the building. But we do the normal parliamentary work. We have commissions and committees every 2 weeks. We have the sessions every 2 weeks. Sometimes it's for 1 day, sometimes it's for 2 days. And we do pass a lot of laws, not just on the defense, but also on economics, on the European integration process, because we have to get it done very fast, much faster than any other state joining the European Union before us, and on all of the other areas where we need to integrate our legal system to the European Union, and whatever we need to get the victory and to succeed in this horrible war against an aggressor. I, myself, from an opposition party, Batkivshina. But right now in the country, there could be no opposition to the defense and to the survival of the country and nation. And obviously we voted in complete constitutional majority for everything the defense needs, for everything that the people of Ukraine need to get their pensions, to get their water, electricity, to get the financial system stable. We do have still our differences on the economic policy of the state or on the social policy of the state. And I imagine that we will have a lot of differences for the reconstruction of the country. But right now, the parliament, the government, the president are all working united, all working together as it should be in the country in times of war. I don't think we've ever seen such unity in the parliament of Ukraine as we've seen during this war period. The parliament almost works and functions as a normal one. The only exception is that we do not do online translation of our sessions. We cannot do that because we keep a secret when the sessions are here, and we only are allowed to inform people about the sessions when they have been finished and all the members of the parliament have left this building. Because we put in a huge risk by telling this information, we put on a huge risk not just ourselves, but also more than 1,000 people that work here in the governmental area and that work here as civil servants to the parliament. I am incredibly proud to be a member of parliament and represent Ukrainians right now in this moment in time, in this completely horrifying, dramatic, awful period of war, but also a very inspirational moment of our history, where I think the whole world understood who Ukrainians are, where we stood in unity, where we fought together and keep fighting together, where we took away our differences and united as a country and as a nation. And this is why we for sure will win.
And last but not least, let's listen to Vladyslav Zhyliuk, lawyer, assistant consultant to the People's Deputy of Ukraine, assistant attorney. He will share his expert view on Verkhovna Rada's functioning during the war.
It's quite difficult to assess the quality of the parliament work in such unprecedented conditions. However, I will try to provide my subjective vision of its work in 2022. First of all, is worth noting the promptness of the approval of the decree of President of Ukraine on the introduction of martial law by the law of Ukraine of February 24, 2022. The members of the parliament showed their statesmanship, and during the full-scale invasion of the Russian troops, during the offensive of the direction of Kiev, the deputies gathered under the dome of Verkhovna Rada and cast the necessary number of votes for adoption of this law. The work of the legislative body did not stop there. People's deputies were able to adapt to work under martial law and continue to pass the law necessary for the state. In total, 399 laws of Ukraine and more than 400 resolutions were adopted in 2022. These indicators are equally to approximately half of the indicators of 2021, but the total length of the time of the People's Deputies' work in the session halls is disproportionate. If in the pre-war year 2021 the Parliament held 8 plenary days every month, then in 2022 there were from 2 to 4 such days per month. It is obvious that the focus of the Parliament's work have changed in terms of the sectoral policy of laws. Thus, a significant part of the adopted laws of Ukraine regulated relations specifically in the field of security and defense. In total, 44 such laws were adopted in 2022, which significantly exceeds the indicators of pre-war period. In 2022, also economic policy laws took first place among all areas of legal regulations, 97 laws, which was due to the need to adapt the national economy to work in wartime conditions. It is difficult to assess the quality of the adopted laws, but in my subjective opinion, it has not changed significantly in 2022. First of all, thanks to the fact that after the COVID pandemic, members of the parliament were well adapted to work in the committees online, and the committees already ensured a certain quality of drafts which were then submitted to the parliament for voting. However, it's also worth noting that the ability of each individual deputy to qualitatively analyze draft agenda items before the voting in the parliamentary hall has distinctly decreased, since such agenda was provided to members of the parliament almost immediately before the voting. In conclusion, it is worth saying that despite all challenges that the full-scale war posed to all of us, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, like the entire Ukrainian society, was able to adapt to these difficult conditions and continue to work for the victory of Ukraine. And I am sure it will continue to do it in 2023.
You've been watching a special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!